Nothing says love like an empty seat and a lipstick-stained napkin at Applebee's. I'm Nick Forrester, and tonight marks 15 years of marriage to a woman who just texted another man while sitting across from me at our anniversary dinner. The text wasn't meant for me to see, but Lila's always been careless when she thinks she's being clever. The phone lit up on the red checkered tablecloth, and there it was. Outside, now. Can't wait anymore. I took a sip of my beer and watched my wife's face flush. She grabbed her purse with the kind of urgency reserved for bathroom emergencies and cheating wives. "I'll be right back, honey," she said, her voice pitched higher than usual. "Casey's having a crisis." Casey Wright. Casey was my brother Adam's middle name. Through the restaurant window, I watched Lila slip into the passenger seat of Adam's black BMW. My own brother, the finance manager who always looked at me like I was something he'd scrape off his shoe. The guy who'd been coming to our house for Sunday dinners and sleeping with my wife for God knows how long. I finished my beer and paid the check. Drove home to our modest colonial on Maple Street, the one I'd been fixing up room by room with my construction worker's salary while Adam pulled down 6 figures pushing numbers around spreadsheets. Lila came home 2 hours later, hair mussed, makeup smudged, with some story about comforting Casey through a breakup. She even managed to look me in the eye while she lied. "Sorry the anniversary dinner got cut short," she said, kicking off her heels. "You know how these things go." "Actually, I don't," I replied, settling into my recliner. "But I'm learning." She paused at the bottom of the stairs, studying my face. "What's that supposed to mean?" I reached into my shirt pocket and pulled out a small wrapped box. "Happy anniversary, sweetheart." Her face brightened with genuine surprise. For a moment, she almost looked like the woman I'd married 15 years ago, before the ambition and dissatisfaction had hardened her features. "Oh, Nick, you didn't have to? Open it." She tore away the wrapping paper and lifted the lid. Inside, nestled in tissue paper, was a flash drive. "What is this?" "Your greatest hits collection," I said. "Recorded over the past 3 months. Amazing what you can hear when you wire a car properly." The color drained from her face. "You bugged my car?" "I installed a hands-free calling system, remember? Last Christmas? You said it was the most thoughtful gift I'd ever given you." I leaned forward. The recording feature was just a bonus. Lila's hands shook as she stared at the flash drive. "Nick, I can explain." "No need. It's all very clear on the recordings. You and Adam discussing how stupid I am, how you're just waiting for the right moment to leave, how you've been siphoning money from our joint account to fund your little love nest." She sank onto the couch, the box falling from her hands. "How long have you known?" 3 months, 2 weeks, and 4 days. But who's counting? What do you want?" Her voice was barely a whisper. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at our quiet neighborhood. "Mrs. Hadley was watering her flowers next door, probably straining to hear every word through our thin walls. "I want you to understand something, Lila. You think you're smart. You think you've been playing me for a fool, but you have no idea what's coming. Are you threatening me?" I turned back to her, and for the first time in months, I smiled, really smiled. "Threatening?" "No, sweetheart. I'm making you a promise. By the time I'm done, you and Adam will wish you'd never heard my name." She stood up, some of her old defiance returning. "You can't prove anything. Those recordings are probably illegal. Massachusetts is a one-party consent state. As long as one person in the conversation knows about the recording, it's perfectly legal. And since you were in my car, using my equipment, I'd say we're covered." The defiance crumbled. "What do you want from me?" "Nothing. You've already given me everything I need." I picked up the flash drive and slipped it back into my pocket. "Oh, and Lila, you might want to check your credit cards tomorrow. I've been making some changes to our financial arrangements." I headed for the stairs, leaving her sitting in the living room, staring at the empty box. "Nick," she called after me. "We need to talk about this." "No," I said without turning around. "We really don't." The next morning, I was up at 5:30, same as always. Construction waits for no man, and neither does revenge. I had coffee brewing and eggs frying when Lila stumbled downstairs in her bathrobe, looking like she'd spent the night wrestling with demons. "We need to talk," she said, slumping into a kitchen chair. "About what?" I flipped the eggs with practiced ease. "Your affair with my brother? The money you've been stealing? Or maybe how you told him I was too stupid to figure it out?" She flinched. "I never said you were stupid." Quote, "Nick's so dense, he thinks I'm working late when I'm with you. We could probably do it on the kitchen table, and he'd think I was reorganizing the salt shakers." I slid the eggs onto a plate. "Ring any bells?" Lila buried her face in her hands. I was angry. People say things? People do. but they usually don't record themselves saying them. I sat down across from her with my breakfast. Want to hear more? I've got hours of material. Stop. Her voice was muffled by her hands. Just stop. Can't do that, Lila. See, I've been planning this conversation for months. I've got a whole presentation prepared. She looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. What do you want? Money? The house? I'll give you whatever you want for a quiet divorce. I laughed, and the sound surprised even me. It wasn't bitter or angry. It was genuinely amused. You think this is about divorce? Sweetheart, this isn't even about the affair. This is about respect, about treating people like human beings instead of obstacles to your happiness. I never meant for it to happen. Bullshit. I took a bite of eggs. You meant every bit of it. You planned it, executed it, and enjoyed every minute. The only thing you didn't plan on was getting caught. My phone buzzed. Text from my buddy Marty. Yeah, coffee later? Got news about your situation. Marty Kowalski ran a tow truck company and had more dirt on this town than a cemetery groundskeeper. If I needed information, he was my guy. I have to go to work, I said, standing up. Try not to call Adam from the house phone. I've been recording those too. Lila's jaw dropped. You tapped our phone? Our phone, our house, our car. Amazing what you can learn on YouTube these days. I grabbed my lunchbox and hard hat. Oh, and honey? You might want to cancel that spa weekend you and Adam planned. Your credit cards aren't going to work anymore. I left her sitting at the kitchen table, staring at nothing. The construction site was a new office complex downtown, all glass and steel and corporate ambition. The kind of place Adam would feel right at home in. I spent the morning running electrical, losing myself in the familiar rhythm of honest work. At lunch, I met Marty at Darla's Diner, a greasy spoon that served the best coffee in town and minded its own business. You look like hell, Marty said as I slid into the booth across from him. He was a big guy, ex-cop turned entrepreneur, with hands like ham hocks and a heart bigger than his beer gut. Rough night. Lila knows I know. How'd she take it? About as well as you'd expect. She's scared, but she's not broken yet. That comes later. Darla herself brought our coffee, a sharp-eyed woman in her 60s who'd been serving coffee and gossip in equal measure for 30 years. Heard your wife's been stepping out, she said without preamble. Sorry, Nick. That's gotta hurt. News travels fast. Mrs. Hadley was in this morning. Said she heard raised voices last night. Darla refilled my cup. Also said she saw Adam's car parked at the Riverside Motel last Tuesday afternoon. I looked at Marty. You didn't. He grinned. Called in a favor with my cousin Eddie. He runs security at the motel. Amazing what shows up on surveillance cameras these days. Please tell me you got pictures. Better. Video. High definition. Your wife's got a tattoo on her left shoulder blade I bet you didn't know about. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. What kind of tattoo? Adam's initials. In a heart. Looks fresh. The coffee turned bitter in my mouth. A tattoo. She'd permanently marked herself for him while lying next to me every night. You okay? Marty asked. Fine. Better than fine, actually. This just makes everything easier. What's the next move? I pulled out my phone and scrolled through my contacts until I found the number I was looking for. Time to make some calls. The first call was to Lila's boss, Janet Morrison, HR director at Pinnacle Insurance. We'd met at company parties, and she'd always struck me as the no-nonsense type who wouldn't appreciate her employees conducting affairs on company time. Janet? It's Nick Forrester, Lila's husband. I need to talk to you about something urgent. Is everything all right? Is Lila hurt? Not physically, but I think you should know she's been using company resources for personal business. I have documentation if you're interested. There was a long pause. What kind of documentation? The kind that shows she's been meeting her boyfriend at motels during work hours and charging the time to client meetings. I can email you the details. I think you'd better come in this afternoon. The second call was to Adam's girlfriend, Monica. She was a lawyer, sharp as a blade, and twice as cutting. If anyone would appreciate the legal implications of what Adam was doing, it would be her. Monica? It's Nick, Adam's brother. We need to talk. Janet Morrison's office was all beige walls and motivational posters, the kind of place where dreams went to fill out paperwork. She looked at the printed emails and photos I'd brought with the expression of someone who'd just found a dead rat in her coffee. These timestamps show she was at the motel during the Henderson presentation, she said, adjusting her glasses. She billed 4 hours to that client. That's fraud, isn't it? At minimum, it's theft of company time. At maximum, she shook her head. How long has this been going on? Based on the evidence I have? At least 6 months. Maybe longer. Janet leaned back in her chair. Nick, I have to ask, why bring this to me instead of just confronting your wife? Because she's already cost me my marriage and my self-respect. I'll be damned if I let her steal from her employer, too. It was a good line. Righteous indignation mixed with wounded pride. Janet bought it completely. I'll need to conduct a full investigation, but based on what you've shown me, Lila's employment here is in serious jeopardy. I understand. I just thought you should know. Meeting with Monica was trickier. She agreed to see me at her law office, a gleaming tower downtown that screamed success and billable hours. This is awkward, she said, as I sat down in her client chair. Adam mentioned you two weren't getting along. Did he mention why? He said you were jealous of his success, having trouble with your marriage and taking it out on him. I pulled out my phone and played one of the recordings. Adam's voice filled the office. Monica's getting suspicious. Maybe we should cool it for a while. Lila's response? She's not the problem. Nick is, but he's too stupid to do anything about it. Adam. What if he finds out? Lila. Then we'll deal with it. Monica will never know. She's so busy with her cases, she barely pays attention to you anyway. Monica's face went through several interesting color changes as the recording played. By the end, she looked like she was ready to commit murder. How long? She asked quietly. At least 6 months. I have more recordings if you want to hear them. No, I've heard enough. She stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the city below. What do you want from me, Nick? Nothing. I just thought you deserved to know the truth. She turned back to me. Bullshit. Nobody does something like this out of kindness. What's your angle? I had to admire her directness. You're right. I want them to hurt the way they hurt me. I want them to lose everything they care about. And you think I'll help you? I think you're smart enough to know that Adam's going to keep cheating until someone stops him. Today it's my wife. Tomorrow it'll be someone else. Monica was quiet for a long moment. What did you have in mind? Nothing illegal, nothing violent. Just the truth, spread to the right people at the right time. The truth can be a powerful weapon. The most powerful. She sat back down and opened her laptop. Show me what else you have. By the time I left Monica's office, we had a plan. She would handle Adam's professional reputation while I dealt with the social fallout. It was a partnership born of mutual betrayal, but those tend to be the strongest kind. I stopped by the construction site to check in with my crew, then headed home. Lila's car was in the driveway, but the house felt empty. I found her in the bedroom, packing a suitcase. Going somewhere? She didn't look up. I'm staying with Casey for a few days. Until we can figure this out. Nothing to figure out. You made your choice. It doesn't have to end like this, Nick. We can work through this. I sat down on the bed next to her suitcase. You got a tattoo? Her hand stilled on the clothes she was folding. What? Adam's initials. On your shoulder. When? She turned to face me, and I saw something I'd never seen in her eyes before. Shame. 2 months ago. While we were still sleeping in the same bed. While you were still telling me you loved me. I do love you. No. I stood up. You don't. You love the idea of having someone to fall back on if things don't work out with Adam. You love having a safety net. Tears started down her cheeks. That's not true. Isn't it? Tell me, Lila. If Adam left Monica tomorrow and asked you to marry him, would you stay with me? She opened her mouth to answer, then closed it. The silence told me everything I needed to know. That's what I thought. I headed for the door. Don't forget to take your tattoo with you. The next morning brought the first real satisfaction I'd felt in months. Lila called at 7 a.m., her voice shaking with rage and panic. They fired me. Who fired you? Don't play dumb, Nick. Janet Morrison called me into her office first thing this morning. Said they were terminating my employment for theft of company time and resources. I was making coffee, taking my time with the measurements. That's terrible, honey. What are you going to do for health insurance? This is your fault. You went to my boss. I went to a concerned citizen who deserved to know her employee was defrauding the company. Big difference. You bastard. You vindictive, petty bastard. Careful, Lila. That's the kind of language that got you in trouble in the first place. She hung up on me. 5 minutes later, my phone rang again. This time it was Adam. What the hell did you do? Good morning to you too, brother. Monica threw me out. Literally threw my clothes out the window of her apartment. The doorman had to call security. Sounds like a personal problem. She said you played recordings for her. Private conversations between me and Lila. Nothing private about adultery, Adam. By definition, it involves other people. You can't do this. I'll sue you for invasion of privacy. With what money? I hear you're about to be unemployed, too. There was a pause. What do you mean? Monica's got friends in high places. Amazing how fast word spreads in professional circles. The line went dead. I finished my coffee and headed to work, whistling. At the construction site, my crew was already hard at it. These were good men, honest workers who understood the value of loyalty and keeping your word. They'd heard about my situation through the grapevine, and their support was quiet but unwavering. "Boss," called Tommy Ricci, my best electrician. "Got a minute?" I climbed down from the scaffolding where I'd been checking conduit runs. "What's up?" "My cousin Sal works security at Pinnacle Insurance. Says there was some drama there yesterday. Woman got fired for screwing around on company time." "That's so?" "Yeah." Sal also says the woman's boyfriend got fired from his job at Morrison Financial this morning. Something about ethics violations. I tried to look surprised. Small world. Getting smaller every day. Tommy grinned. "Sal wanted me to tell you he's sorry for your troubles, but justice has a way of working itself out." "Tell Sal I appreciate the thought." By lunch, the news was all over town. Mrs. Hadley had called 3 of her friends, who'd called 3 of theirs, and so on. The beauty of a small town is that secrets don't stay secret long, especially when they are this juicy. I met Marty at the diner again. Darla had the coffee ready before I sat down. "Heard your wife lost her job," she said, not bothering to hide her satisfaction. "Shame when people can't keep their personal business separate from their work. These things have a way of catching up with you." "They do indeed." "Also heard your brother's having a rough day, too." I looked at Marty. "How rough?" "Monica's got connections at the state licensing board. Seems Adam's been playing fast and loose with client accounts. Nothing criminal, but enough to get his license suspended pending investigation." Ouch. Gets better. His landlord got an anonymous tip about unauthorized occupants and lease violations. Building management's starting eviction proceedings. I had to admire Monica's thoroughness. She was dismantling Adam's life with surgical precision. "Think they're getting the message?" Marty asked. "Not yet. But they will." That evening, I was in my workshop in the garage, organizing tools and thinking about my next move, when I heard a car pull into the driveway. Through the window, I saw Adam's BMW. Both he and Lila got out, their faces grim with determination. They came through the side door without knocking, which was their first mistake. "We need to talk," Adam said. I set down the wrench I'd been cleaning. "Make it fast. I've got work to do." "This has gone far enough," Lila said. "We're willing to make a deal." "What kind of deal?" Adam stepped forward, trying to loom over me. He was taller, but I had 40 pounds of muscle on him and hands like leather from 20 years of construction work. "You stop this campaign of harassment, and we'll make sure the divorce goes smoothly. No contest, fair division of assets. And if I don't?" "Then we'll make your life very difficult," Adam said. "I've got connections, too. People who can make problems for unlicensed contractors." I smiled and picked up a hammer from the workbench. Not threatening, just examining it like I was checking the balance. "You know what I learned in construction, Adam? Before you tear something down, you better make sure you're not standing under it." "Is that a threat?" "It's a fact. See, you two made one big mistake. You assumed I was stupid, that I'd just roll over and take it." Lila stepped between us. "Nick, please. We can work this out like adults. Adults don't sleep with their brother-in-law. Adults don't steal from their employers. Adults don't get tattoos of their boyfriend's name while they're still married to someone else." Adam's face flushed. "How did you know about the tattoo?" "Same way I know about the joint bank account you two opened. Same way I know about the apartment you were planning to rent together. Same way I know about the vacation to Bermuda you booked for next month." They exchanged glances, and I could see the fear creeping in. "You've been watching us," Lila whispered. "I've been protecting myself." "There's a difference." "What do you want?" Adam asked. I set the hammer down and looked at both of them. "I want you to understand that actions have consequences. I want you to know what it feels like to lose everything you care about." "We get it," Lila said. "We're sorry. We made mistakes? No, you made choices. And now you get to live with them." Adam's temper finally snapped. "You self-righteous piece of shit. You think you're better than us? You're nothing but a glorified handyman who couldn't keep his wife happy." The workshop went very quiet. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall and the distant sound of Mrs. Hadley's television next door. "You're right," I said finally. I couldn't keep her happy. But then again, I was trying to keep a wife happy. Not a whore. Adam lunged at me. I sidestepped and let his momentum carry him into the workbench. Tools scattered across the floor as he caught himself. Get out, I said quietly. Both of you. Now. This isn't over, Adam said, rubbing his ribs where he'd hit the bench. Yes, it is. You just don't know it yet. 3 days later, the other shoe dropped. I was at work when Marty called with news that made my day. You need to get down to the police station, he said. Now. What happened? Your brother just got arrested for embezzlement. I found Monica waiting for me in the parking lot of the police station. She looked like a cat who'd found a whole nest of canaries. I thought you'd want to see this, she said. What exactly did you do? Nothing illegal. I just made sure the right people knew about Adam's creative accounting practices. Turns out he'd been skimming client accounts for months to fund his lifestyle. How much? $43,000? Felony territory. Through the station's glass doors, I could see Adam in handcuffs, looking smaller than I'd ever seen him. Lila was there too, crying and trying to talk to anyone who would listen. She's not under arrest, Monica said, following my gaze. But she's implicated. Some of the money went into that joint account they opened. Will she be charged? Depends on how cooperative she is with the investigation. We watched as they led Adam away. Lila saw us through the window, and the look she gave me could have melted steel. She blames you, Monica observed. Good. She should. What now? Now we wait. Let them stew for a while. But Lila wasn't content to wait. That night, she showed up at the house with Casey and 2 other friends I didn't recognize. They looked like they meant business. I was watching TV when they barged in through the front door. Lila had a key, of course, though I'd been planning to change the locks. We need to talk, she said, flanked by her support group. No, we don't. Get out of my house. It's our house, Casey said. She was a thin woman with sharp features and an attitude that had always rubbed me wrong. Lila has rights. Lila has the right to remain silent. Anything else is negotiable. One of the other women, a hefty brunette I'd never seen before, stepped forward. You think you're real smart, don't you? Destroying people's lives. I didn't destroy anything. I just shined a light on what was already there. Adam's in jail because of you, Lila said. He could go to prison. Adam's in jail because he's a thief. I just made sure people knew about it. You ruined everything, she screamed. We had a plan. We were going to be happy. You were going to be happy. What about me? What about our marriage? What about 15 years of vows and promises? Casey laughed, a harsh sound. Please, you 2 haven't been happy in years. Lila was just too nice to leave you. Too nice? She was stealing money and sleeping with my brother. That's not nice, that's criminal. The third woman, a redhead with too much makeup, spoke up. Maybe if you'd been a better husband, she wouldn't have needed to look elsewhere. Something cold and hard settled in my chest. Get out. We're not done talking, Lila said. Yes, you are. I stood up and walked to the phone. You've got 30 seconds to leave before I call the police. You wouldn't dare. I started dialing. Nick Forrester, 1247 Maple Street. I need to report a break-in. 4 women forced their way into my house and are refusing to leave. They left, but not quietly and not without promises that this wasn't over. The next morning, I woke up to find my truck's tires slashed and bastard spray-painted across the garage door. Mrs. Hadley was standing in her yard, shaking her head. Saw them do it, she called over. Around 3 a.m. That wife of yours and her little gang. Did you call the police? Didn't need to. Got it all on video. Harold installed security cameras last month after those break-ins on Oak Street. Harold was Mrs. Hadley's husband, a retired electrician who understood the value of good surveillance equipment. Would you be willing to share that video with the police? Already did. Officer Martinez picked it up an hour ago. By noon, Lila had been arrested for vandalism and trespassing. The judge set bail at $5,000, which she couldn't make since her assets were frozen pending the embezzlement investigation. I visited her at the county jail that evening. She looked terrible. Orange jumpsuit, no makeup, hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. This wasn't the polished, ambitious woman I'd married. Happy now? She asked through the reinforced glass. Getting there. I hate you. I know. This is all your fault. If you'd just minded your own business. My wife sleeping with my brother is my business, Lila. She started crying then. Big ugly sobs that shook her whole body. I loved him. Past tense? He won't take my calls. His lawyer says any contact could hurt his case. Smart lawyer. 15 years, Nick. Doesn't that mean anything to you? I looked at this woman I'd once promised to love and honor, and tried to find some trace of the person I'd fallen for. She was gone, if she'd ever really existed. It meant everything to me. That's why this hurts so much. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I know you are. But sorry doesn't fix anything. What do you want from me? Nothing. You've already given me everything I needed. I left her there and drove home to my empty house. The silence felt different now, not lonely, but peaceful, like the calm after a storm. 2 months later, the trials began. Adam pled guilty to embezzlement and got 3 years, suspended to 18 months with restitution. Lila testified against him in exchange for immunity, which pretty much ended any chance they had of getting back together. I sat in the courtroom and watched my brother get sentenced, feeling nothing but a distant satisfaction. Justice wasn't always swift, but it was usually thorough. Monica found me in the hallway afterward. How do you feel? Empty, but in a good way. I'm moving to Boston, she said. New job, fresh start. Good for you. What about you? What's next? I thought about it. I'm thinking about buying a boat, something small, just for weekends. Sounds peaceful. That's the idea. The divorce was finalized a month later. Lila got half of what was left after legal fees, which wasn't much. The house was mine, along with my truck, my tools, and my self-respect. She moved back in with her mother in Springfield, got a job at a call center, and faded into the kind of ordinary life she'd spent years trying to escape. Sometimes I heard updates through the gossip network. She was dating a mechanic, she'd gained weight, she seemed tired all the time. Adam served his time and moved to Florida when he got out. No one heard much from him after that. I kept working construction, kept fixing up the house, kept living my quiet life. Mrs. Hadley brought me casseroles sometimes, and we'd sit on the porch talking about the weather and the neighbors and anything except the past. One evening, almost a year after it all started, I was in my workshop when I heard a car in the driveway. I looked out to see Lila getting out of an old Honda Civic. She looked older, worn down by life and consequences. She knocked on the side door, and I let her in. Hello, Nick. Lila. I was in town visiting Mom. Thought I'd stop by. How are you? Surviving. You? Same. She looked around the workshop, which I'd reorganized and expanded. New tools, better lighting, everything in its place. You've been busy. Keeps me occupied. I heard you're seeing someone. The librarian. Sarah? Yes. Is it serious? Could be. She nodded, not meeting my eyes. I'm glad. You deserve to be happy. So do you? Do I? After everything I did? I considered the question. Everyone deserves a chance at happiness, Lila. The trick is not destroying other people's in the process. She was quiet for a long moment. I came to apologize. Really apologize. Not the fake sorry I gave you before. Okay. I was selfish and cruel and stupid. I threw away something good for something that was never real. I hurt you in ways I can't even begin to make up for. You're right. I don't expect forgiveness. I just wanted you to know that I understand what I lost. I looked at this woman who had once been the center of my world and felt nothing but a distant sadness for the choices she'd made. I forgive you, I said. She looked up, surprised. You do? Not for your sake, for mine. Carrying that anger around was making me someone I didn't want to be. Tears started down her cheeks. Thank you. But Lila, don't come back here again. We're done. Completely done. She nodded and wiped her eyes. Goodbye, Nick. Goodbye. I watched her drive away and knew I'd never see her again. The last chapter of our story was finally closed. Sarah came by an hour later with Chinese takeout and a bottle of wine. She was everything Lila wasn't. Honest, kind, content with simple pleasures. We ate dinner and talked about her day at the library and my progress on the kitchen renovation. Later, as we sat on the porch watching the sunset, she took my hand. You're quiet tonight. Just thinking. About what? About how sometimes the worst thing that happens to you turns out to be the best thing. She squeezed my hand. I love you, Nick Forrester. I love you too. And I did. Not the desperate, needy love I'd felt for Lila, but something deeper and more solid, something built on trust and respect and shared values. Mrs. Hadley waved from her garden, and I waved back. Tomorrow I'd help her fix her back steps, and she'd make me lunch and tell me about her grandchildren. Next weekend, Sarah and I would take the boat out on the lake and maybe talk about moving in together. It was a quiet life, a simple life, but it was mine. I'd built it from the wreckage of my marriage, one careful decision at a time, and for the first time in years, I was exactly where I wanted to be. The anniversary statement was complete, the debt was paid in full.